Hello world, today is Friday, February 20th, 2026, and it's around 9:40 a.m. and I'm walking here with Tom, and we're talking about convergence of technologies and recent podcasts with Elon Musk. So, where did we leave off? What were you saying?
Yeah. So Elon was mentioning there's this clip that's being passed around that autonomous companies are going to win, right?
Autonomous companies, yeah. I remember this. It's very memorable that he compares it to the Excel spreadsheet.
Yes. Yeah. If you have an Excel spreadsheet where one cell has to be manually computed by a person, right? And it's just an awful experience, right? It's not a real spreadsheet. And he's like, companies are going to be the same way. You're going to have a bunch of autonomous decision makers that are running at 100x, 1000x human speed. I forget which direction we have to go in. Is it this way?
That's the back alleyway, but I think we can go that way. We can go around this way.
Yeah.
And that he basically compares, you used to have a whole skyscraper full of people doing computations, and that was essentially one spreadsheet doing computations, that with the personal computer and the spreadsheet computer program. So now we have AI agentic companies that will similarly outcompete human companies,
I don't
right?
think we now have them, but it's the bet is that we will have them within the foreseeable future, right? Which is why he's leaning so hard on AI, and why a lot of these AI companies are making huge bets in this direction. In some sense, it's a very compelling thesis. It makes sense. At the same time, it is incredibly. It takes humans out of the picture. And there's a version where you think of organizations as, there's a. Have you seen Her by Spike Jonze?
Yes,
It's really unclear how people live and work in the world of Her, but I've watched this movie 8 or 10 times, and the idea is that there are still corporations. People still have jobs despite it being supposedly a post-scarcity world, right? There's still humans who are doing human things, and they're working in a way that looks very company shaped, right? But augmented by all of the insane technology that supposedly exists in that world. And I don't see why we can't at least lean in that direction. Her is not perfect too. There may be some things in that universe or that imagining where you're I don't know about that. But to me, that seems like a better alternative than not having humans in the picture at all, which is what it feels like the future economy, and what a lot of people are making bets on, is that there are not going to be a lot of humans in the economy.
It makes me think of the DIAC Vitalik kind of blog post and movement, that we have democratic and distributed AI. I imagine this, since the technology is always evolving in an open source direction, with a PyAgent, OpenClaw, and Cloud Code SDK, Agent SDK, that it's going to be individuals that are able to compete and have this bottom-up grassroots companies, AI agentic companies that are better than the Google or Facebook or OpenAI produces. So this is the collective intelligence, kind of open source community building these things, and then that allows entrepreneurs, individuals, to create these companies and scale with the existing and compete with the existing companies. So I think that kind of perspective is really motivating.
I think it's
exciting.
Incredibly optimistic, but I also think it needs to solve a lot of problems. George Hotz has this whole thesis that if compute is the thing that is going to empower you as an individual, well, I mean, as an individual, how are you going to beat Google with all of its data centers? How are you going to beat NVIDIA with its 100 billion capex on just that's just its revenue, right? Per year, I should say. It's not even its capex. So
how do people compete with? I think through
with the hyperscalers, yeah.
Well, you have to start this chain reaction from small first users, and then you iterate. It's an iterative process. You can't just because it's like a relationship with one person and
I just
10.
mean like
and
from like fundamentals and like physics. Like I'd have to kind of figure out and kind of like roughly calculate this, but the question is like if you look at like net volume compute, that can be directed and combined to do something useful, right? Are there, if you combine all the personal computers and smartphones and game consoles and personal consumer GPUs, is that amount of flops? Like, how does that trend line look like compared to the concentrated data center flops that hyperscalers have, right? Now, maybe in aggregate, like literally every device might have combined more flops than like a single US West 2 instance or a single US West 2 campus. But can you do something useful, right? Like distributed computing is very hard. It's not as efficient as if you could co-locate and centralize everything.
I see. What I was picturing is like distributed computing. I was picturing like the trends, like business trends of, hey, somebody launches a new app, AI app, and then they grow it, they scale it, and then because that inherently, okay, you have a business model, and that itself is a way for individuals to compete against, because they are working. This is like the algorithms of individual businesses, and so this way, inverting thinking about the large companies have all these resources, but the individuals can kick off these processes, these system processes that will be like a chain reaction and kind of like a forest fire that turns this inherent potential into actuality and launches new apps that can compete. So this is like an ecosystem of this is a kind of evolutionary model of natural selection, where each individual is in the same ecology. Think of it as like natural selection, and it's the selection of the survival of the fittest, and like the apex predators maybe be like keystone species of like, and like the one species is like a one company, and you have some smaller companies that are like mammals or something, but then there's like, so I'm picturing like it's always a battle for survival, and it's a battle survival of the businesses, which are kind of like meta programs that are living in the hosts of bodies of humans, and they just tell us what to do. As like, hey, I go to work and I work for Google. I'm a software engineer for Google, and I'm allowed to survive and propagate and get with the ladies that way. Or I'm an entrepreneur and I'm trying to create my own, and I decide what, I'm my own agent, and I decide what I do with my time. And this is like we are kind of like this is like we are the hosts for these kinds of algorithms of these like businesses, right, and entities.
I think this is a compelling idea, right? Like, the selfish gene, right? Genes to memes and so on. Dawkins, right? Dawkins' whole thing. But I am hesitant to draw too much analogy between evolutionary biology and what is happening in markets today. Like, it is very compelling, and it does seem to be like kind of like a nice unified mental model for like how things work in the world. But like evolutionary biology is like something that happens over millennia, and
I'm drawing illusion. It's just comparisons, but like to try to think of a business process in a different way, as an algorithmic process, as an algorithm.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like comparing that. I mean, the evolutionary process is just one algorithm there, and amongst others, but like that, like the entities and the law itself is an algorithm, and that in another way, blockchain also is like allows the digitization of this completely, so that these algorithms of monetary policy of governments can become completely digital through the programmable blockchain of like global state computer of Ethereum. And that's another perspective of, okay, so how things will play out with individuals building agentic companies versus large corporations. And then another way is just kicking off processes that like allow agents to recursively self-improve and pursue their own goals of survival with like AI agentic autonomous companies like Web4.
Yeah.
Like what Sigel launched like 2 days ago.
Yeah. No. Of course, like I don't want to. I don't want to make the wrong extrapolations, right? Like past performance may not be a future indicator of success. That being said, like there hasn't been precedent for, individuals who build institutions that beat Goliath, at least within a short time span, right? Within the time spans we're talking about. We're talking about some kind of like incredible gap forming between hyperscalers and everybody else within the next 5 to 10 years. And, to my knowledge, there hasn't been any case where someone in 5 to 10 years, or, someone in less than 5 to 10 years built something that is competitive with, monopolies and hyperscalers, i.e. like, just like historically, like I'm trying to think of like when was I don't know if there's been any.
Perplexity, 11 Labs.
These were not 5 to 10
Cursor.
years. These were not 5 to 10. Cursor is a good example, but even then,
Lovable.
Cursor and Lovable are remarkable demonstrations of success. They are still not competing with Google, right? In the sense that like Cursor and Lovable do not have, $10 billion revenues or per quarter, right? They don't have hundreds of billions of dollars just on their cash sheet ready to spend on whatever, right? And in a lot of ways, Cursor and Lovable are still dependent upstream on like a lot of Google and Microsoft and Amazon services. So it's a very compelling narrative, but it's like you also just kind of have to be real about like what are the relative scales of these operations, right? And like what exactly is the scope of what they're doing. The largest, to my knowledge, right? To my knowledge, like the biggest example is OpenClaw, with like Peter being acquired by OpenAI for I don't know something in the ballpark of like tens of millions of dollars.
Hi, Grace. Hello.
And it's like tens of millions of dollars in like 3 months is phenomenal. It's insane, right? Insane amount of leverage and growth there. But $10 million is like nothing to Google or nothing to Microsoft, right? It was essentially nothing to OpenAI and Anthropic. So, again, like I don't want to like look at history and try to extrapolate too far because it's like really unclear. There could be a lot of discontinuities and like our understanding of the past may not translate well to the future. But I'm also just trying to like stay grounded in like reality, right? And what we've seen in just like the last 18 months.
Okay, so we're getting close to the co-working spot. And to conclude, you're saying that
I'm very,
the agentic companies are going to be taken over by existing hyperscalers.
Yeah, it's just like I think it's a good bet to bet on hyperscalers or just people who have had a few decades to already accrue a lot of like knowledge and capital, right? And it's just very hard to imagine people who haven't had decades of experience and time to accrue capital and let that accumulate compete. At least at their scale. I don't want to say it's like never going to happen, but I also just like I think you have to be real about it.
What do you think is the best bet for people building AI agentic companies and for the agentic economy? What kind of strategy or angle?
No, I think you have to be realistic about like your time scales, your timeline, and your scales. Like, will you be a $100 billion company in the next 5 to 10 years? If you have an opportunity to do that, then obviously pursue that, but also be realistic about like, do you have a path to do that? I don't think there are many, or if you do have a path to do that, you're a remarkable person and like completely pursue it. But like, I think a lot of people are making the bet that like maybe you should just try to join a hyperscaler if you are not that kind of person who has a $100 billion idea. $100 billion in less than 10 years, particularly, right? Is what matters. So that's my 2 cents.
Got it. Okay. Thanks, Tom. And so we're just walking to the co-working space here, and we're hearing some birds and some traffic, and I smell. What do you smell?
There's this restaurant. It smells like naan and maybe grease.
Yeah, I can smell some oily, fatty foods, but it smells good. All right, high five.
Right.
Peace out.
I didn't want to like the mic, but yeah.
Okay, have a great day, and peace.